Berger to come. I'm seriously, I tried to get him to come. But he said he'd only come under one condition, that if he could baptize Claire again.
He wishes.
He did baptize you, didn't he, Claire? Yeah. He said he would come if we would get the baptistry full of water. And if he said, I'll come. No, I'm taking his schedule.
What was that he said? He didn't hold me down on it. He didn't see books.
Yeah, he said he But Brother Berger, he'll be able to come back on another occasion. He's just tired of it himself this weekend. He's such a delightful and a wonderful man. Let's open our Bibles to 2 Peter. 2 Peter. 2 Peter, chapter number 3. I got to talking and I had my place, turned right to it, and then lost it. That'll teach me. There we go. 2 Peter, chapter number 3, and I'll begin reading the verse number 11. Chapter number 3 of 2 Peter, and I'll begin reading verse number 11. And then I think next week we're going to be missing Damien and Coleman. Prayers be with them, or give them traveling mercies. I know they're excited about their trip over to Spain. May the Lord bless them. Coleman learned a lot. I was speaking with Coleman Sunday night. I said, now Coleman, when you get real big like Pele, Pele is the Brazilian soccer player back in the 70s and 80s, my generation. He was real big. And I said, now when you get as big as Pele, I said, I want you to buy your preacher. I said, I don't want a Cadillac, don't want a Mercedes. I said, but I do want a new Honda. I said, you buy your daddy a Cadillac, but you buy me a new Honda. He just looked at me like, come on, preacher. and he said, sure, I'll do it, preacher. And he would. So let's pray. He really thinks, no, I'm just kidding. My Honda, I rode 320,000 around though, and that thing's still running like a brand new car. I'm so thankful. I've got so much to be thankful for. The Bible reads in 2 Peter chapter number 3, verse 11, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking forward and hasting into the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. The last verse. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Within one paragraph, he's going to use that word diligence, or diligent, 3 different times. So just in this paragraph, he's emphasizing, be diligent, be diligent. Now, he opened this chapter with saying, be mindful, that is, be alert. And now he goes into saying, be diligent, which is really as a result of when we are putting our minds in focus, and we are seeing a goal and being determined to follow it. Then he's saying, be diligent to fulfill the things that you have focused on mentally and spiritually. So he's saying be diligent. Now the diligence is, even though we are in a world that talks a lot about peace, there's very little of it. In fact, the Bible records that peace, Jesus said, I give you peace. And there's such a great price tag on peace. Very few people have it. Very few Christians have it. Little. And you and I seem, sometimes we grasp peace and we have it momentarily, and then it kind of is elusive or evasive from us. But this peace, Jesus said, the world cannot give you the kind of peace that God can. And though neither can the world take this peace from us. Now, we allow our peace to leave when we concentrate more on our worries than we do on saying, God, I trust you with me. I trust you with me. Now, since 9/11, I think this is only the 3rd time I've ever boarded a plane, Friday. And this is good for me. I just simply have to say as I board the plane, Lord, I'm in your hands regardless of what happens. I trust you. And it's not to be just a little flight down to Texas back. It's not that much. There's some people who do it every week. But I just simply say, whether I'm in the air for a little while, or just running across town. Lord, I'm in your hands, and that's really all that matters. God doeth all things well. Now I can concentrate on, once I get on the plane, if I see a certain certain types of individuals that I may think look or remind me of somewhat like those men who flew the planes in the towers. I could become unnerved. Or I could say, I'm in God's hands regardless, and God will do what He wants to with our lives. And so He can do that any day of the week. So that's where peace happens. Peace happens when we concentrate more on God, focus on Him, and realize that it really does, nothing else really matters except following Him, obeying Him, and loving Him. Because the world today is completely at odds. There have been, statistically, it was proven that there have been less than 40 years since the last 6,000 years, less than 40 years of peace between nations. Less than 40 years. And other than that, for the last 6,000 years, nations and small countries have been at odds and been in each other's throat. So peace is a commodity that is very much missing in the world today. So Peter says, you cannot look to this world for your peace. So be diligent, he says, be diligent to keep your peace. Have you ever met somebody that just constantly worries? And you and I, we have our moments, but I mean just people who are just hypochondriacs. They just worry about everything. And I've read that 80% of all the things we worry about never take place. Never take place. But there's some people who just absolutely worry about everything. I had a conversation just last month. My path ran across a person I used to pastor. And I had forgotten just how much I didn't like being around them. And I had to be around them for about 20 minutes. And all they did was remind me of when I would go and visit them, how terrible everything is, how nothing's right. The country is just dissolving into just absolute dismal chaos. The church is just doing no good, and nothing is happening of any value, and we don't even know why we should even live and face another day. And I remember pastoring this person, loving them, trying to be upbeat, praying for them at church, and then praying with them at different times and counseling with them. And it just seemed to be no avail. In fact, the best my efforts were after several years of pastoring them, I think when I left, the person was worse off than when I came there. And I like to think that I try to do something good and I really care about this individual. But after about 20 minutes, I was glad that a phone call came and I had to leave their presence. And they understood. But I'm going to tell you, even though this was a serious phone call and it wasn't anything to make me happy about, I was somewhat relieved to leave that person's presence because they hadn't changed a bit. Now, anybody can be like that if they're just constantly focusing on what is bad and what is wrong. Are there a lot of things bad and are there a lot of things wrong? Absolutely. But while we should notice them, we shouldn't bury our heads like the proverbial ostrich in the sand. We need to look at problems, find a solution, and do what we can, and keep a positive attitude, and do what we can as we do the best we can to solve problems and make situations better. So Peter says, this world cannot offer us peace. And yet, people are trying to find momentary peace from tranquilizers, prescription drugs. And I feel sorry for people like that. It could be me just as easy. It could be anybody else. I had a very dear pastor friend who got hooked on prescription drugs, and his life just went on a downward spiral. And he was a good man, but he had some tough times, some really tough times. But for some reason, he turned to prescription drugs, and I saw his life just become unraveled. Me and several other preachers did our best to help him, and to no avail. This world cannot give us peace. And that's what Peter is saying. Be diligent. Peace is not about finding a pillow and saying, I'm going to prop my feet up and put my head on the pillow, and I'm going to wait till everything gets just the way I want it. No, that's why Peter says, be diligent. You've got to grasp peace. And you've got to grasp this thing called trusting God. This is more for me tonight than it is for you. And we've got to lay hold of it and say, God, I just believe you with all my heart. And when we do that, Peter says, when you're diligent about peace, not being passive about peace, but diligent, Peter said, you can have peace. You can have a peace this world does not have, nor can it until it turns to God. Then he said, hope. Our hope is built on nothing less than Jesus Christ and his righteousness. Our hope cannot come through winning some kind of lottery. There's a dear friend of mine who stays up with people who win lotteries and win big money. He doesn't play the lottery, but it's always fascinating him. And he said that for the most part, there is, and I forgot the stats on it, but there is a number, I don't want to say the majority, but a significant number of people who have won money through different lotteries and different betting and gambling. He said they just won millions and ended up in a few years absolutely bankrupt, and their life just unraveled. So money's not the solution. Money can help. We work for it. We do what we can. Pay our bills, buy our bread, our drink, our tea, our coffee with it. But money's not the answer. Education's not the answer. There are people who get degrees, have more degrees than Fahrenheit has on the thermometer, and they're of no productive good for society. And then we look to government and thank God for government. It's the arm of God. But government itself, while it is the arm of God, and thank God it's restraining, even government, as wonderful it is, and I think America has the very best from what little I know of foreign governments, but thank God we can have a hope, Peter says, in God. And here's what he says quickly. He says, but in the end times we look for new heavens and new earths. Therefore our hope is in God. Our peace comes from the God who will bring about a new heaven and a new earth. Now what does he mean by that? He means simply this, but when Jesus Christ raptures the church out of the world, and he mentioned it in the earlier paragraph, and so I mentioned it last Wednesday, where Jesus Christ shall come and he shall rapture his children out of this world. Then for 7 years, the Antichrist is going to take over, and there is going to be great upheavals of the judgments of God poured out upon this earth. Clean water streams will be turned into blood. Beautiful, pristine lakes and ponds will be filled with blood. And the oceans will be filled with blood. And there will be death on every hand. The hailstones that weigh 75 pounds apiece will come bursting through the atmosphere and land on this earth in judgment. The mark of the beast will take place. Nobody can buy a loaf of bread without the mark. And Peter is saying these things will take place. The new heavens and the new earth will take place because when, after 7 years of tribulation, Jesus Christ is coming back to this world to set up his kingdom, and there is our hope. There is the reason we can have peace. Peace on this earth through the most difficult and trying times, because the Lord is to return and to set up his kingdom. Now watch this carefully. Peter said because of that, we're to be diligent in our holy lives before God. Not a super spirituality, but a genuine biblical holiness. A heart that says, God, I want to obey you and I want to please you. Peter said that is the result of seeing what's going to happen to this world when the Lord comes back again and he cleanses this world. We'll have a new world, a new heaven. Not that he's going to replace this earth. This earth is going to be so sanctified in a sanctifying process of God. Just like our bodies will be glorified. This earth is going to be sanctified. Sanctified, purified by the grace of God. Peter says, therefore, we're to be diligent in how we please God. So how do we please him? By getting his word. Whether it's one verse or a whole chapter or several chapters in a day. Saying, God, I want that time with your word. Be diligent in prayer. Not just saying, Lord bless me, I'm on my way, take care. Don't have it. But finding some moment in the day to say, God, I need you. God, my family needs you. God, I love you and I praise you. And to tell him that with all of your heart. Whether it takes just a few minutes or whether you spend more time than that, just to say, God, I love you. Being diligent. Being diligent by the way that we live and staying. He says this, being blameless and without spot. Without spot. Peter mentions that to say our diligence is not only in prayer, not only in seeking God, but also in doing all we can to say, God, I humble myself before you and I will walk a straight path so that others can see your grace in me. That is diligence. Stand with me, please. Oh God in heaven, bless our time together through your word. I thank you, dear Lord, for your mercies and your grace. I'm thankful that we can trust you and have peace, not as the world gives, but this world can't take our peace away the more we focus on you. Bless every family of this church. Guide us, keep us, love us, and bring us back to the appointed hour, we pray. In Jesus' wonderful name, and everybody said, amen. Amen.